Ain't should have stopped by and saw me if it wasn't for that, you know?
Yeah. Move that move your studio to another room that's not that room. And
yeah, then she won't even come by.
There you go.
Won't even stop by to see me.
Should be like my husband. Yeah, that guy. What's his name? Yeah.
Whoever. Yeah.
Whomever it is. Yeah. Anyhow.
Yep.
Hey there, hi there, ho there.
I was just wondering if somehow that thing didn't blank out that I put, because I mean I made a graphic for it and everything, and
yeah,
talking about serial entrepreneurism, and I hope a lot of people haven't clicked on that, and for some reason are sitting there in a room that we don't have. Did you see a room for it in your StreamYard?
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't either. So
I never saw anything come across.
Really strange, but yeah, it's interesting. I've been coming in hot really bad on Monday nights because Finn now has baseball on Monday nights, and it doesn't get over until 7:15 or so. Get out of the park by 7:20, and then it's just pandemonium trying to get home and stuff.
So I'm just getting a note from Sid. We were supposed to have Sid on tonight, and I hadn't heard from him, and now I've heard from him. So let's see.
Well, whatever. He's welcome to come, but if he wants to do it next week, we can do that too.
Well, let me duck out for a minute and let me chat with him. And
well, I'll talk for a second, and then I'll get into our backup topic on here. So
sounds good. You go on, and I'll chat with him real quick.
Absolutely. So welcome everybody. Hope y'all are doing well. Like I said, I was kind of coming in hot here. We had done a graphic to welcome Sid here, but for some reason that just disappeared off the StreamYard. So we're a little flustered, then had a miscommunication with Sid. So kind of went to plan B all of a sudden. But I wanted to share with you guys, one of the reasons why you never, ever, ever stop learning. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, I've mentioned before that I've done some things for legal issues in this field. So I got to be careful what I'm saying, because I'm not really at the duty to go into this too much, but those projects that I was working on have now gotten accelerated up to the next level, thus creating some confidentiality issues on there. And part of that has had me in this capacity of doing a lot of research, a lot of very serious research for some people. And I tell you what, I was absolutely shocked today whenever I learned something about the second largest siding manufacturer in America, CertainTeed. CertainTeed vinyl siding. Can any one of our esteemed listeners tell me at what pressure you should wash CertainTeed vinyl siding at? Go ahead, feel free to answer over in the comments. Let me know what pressure we should wash CertainTeed vinyl siding at. I got a 450 PSI, 300 PSI, 500 PSI. Okay, so this is actually the manufacturer specs from CertainTeed right here.
The new specs.
New specs. Now, we cite the specs in the plant and property protection thing, where they never actually tell you what they actually gave you a range of pressures from like 1,500 to 2,400 PSI. Here's what they're saying now. And this is on the CertainTeed website. It says, we do not recommend power washing vinyl or polymer siding, as it can cause moisture intrusion, damage, and or discoloration. Instead, we suggest using a house wash that connects to your hose. So something like basically the 30-second Miracle Cleaner, something like that.
But it says, you read that last part again. You said soft wash.
It says that nothing about soft wash. Instead, we using a house wash that connects to your hose.
House wash.
Gotcha. So that'd be a hose end sprayer type scenario.
Gotcha.
So essentially right now, if technically, if you're whipping out a pressure washer, a power washer,
on vinyl siding,
on certain teed vinyl siding. Now, I've got 6 other manufacturers here that do not say this, but if you are whipping out a power washer on vinyl sidings, you are technically in violation of what their recommended manufacturer specifications are.
Very interesting stuff.
Hey, Sid, how are you?
I'm good to see you guys. I'm doing great. Thanks for letting me in.
So,
hey, I've got a question for you about the CertainTeed siding, because that's fascinating. Because industry wide, it's so valuable that you take the time to look this kind of stuff up. Because when I was power washing and teching, I never looked at that. I just common sense will dictate, but your common sense might dictate and void somebody's warranty.
Yeah,
I mean, siding's got a good warranty on it. CertainTeed, it's a good company.
It's a great company, and what I'm actually dealing with is I'm dealing with a couple of accidents and lawsuits here, where I'm doing some work for a plaintiff's attorney, and that's my job to provide specifications for them, and I was flabbergasted whenever I saw this today, Sid. I was just like, this is
because that's strange.
But it should, and I guarantee you, because in black and white, I can pull it up to where within 2 years ago, at minimum of 2 years ago, it did not say that at all. I mean, this may have just changed yesterday. So, and Jonathan,
on top of that, they recommended power washing.
Buddy, I don't know. That's not mine.
Yeah, what a difference. I mean, and literally, I mean, things can change overnight.
They really can, and one of the things that I wanted, and I know I want to talk to you about the amazing, exciting stuff that your serial entrepreneur self has. But, a couple of things that I want to leave everybody with here before we transition over is, are you doing any kind of protection to the house? If not, you're a big dodo, and you should be. And it's not good enough just to do the protection. You need to be documenting.
Let me take pictures of me not doing protection.
I mean, and I'm not saying take a picture of every piece of tape that you put on there, but you need to, and it was fairly easy for me whenever I was doing this up, because I had literally thousands of pictures of houses that had red tape on them, and as I said to this client of mine, I think you can tell that Spray Wash documented our protection pretty well. And again, maybe not every piece of tape that was on there, but you've got a reasonable assumption that these guys these technicians are doing what they're supposed to be doing on there, because
especially using the red tape.
Right. And that's the nice thing about the red tape is it shows up, and there you go, Jonathan, M5 twist on full fan, and damn near cleaning anything will void your warranty. All these manufacturers are just covering their ass. Does anyone stand behind their products anymore?
And that's what we're doing with taking pictures, though, is we're just covering our butts on what could be, what could end up happening. And it has happened many, many times.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest ones is James Hardy siding with their Color Plus, where it's literally in the warranty saying, this stuff's supposed to oxidize and fade out and get chalky. That's part of the charm.
And there are several of them that are turning that direction now.
So yeah, it's and Rich, I absolutely love Company Cam. I think that is one of the best products. Say, do you agree?
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say Company Cam, document that shit. Yeah,
absolutely.
I remember the first time I saw a Company Cam. I think I said this last week, but the first time I saw a Company Cam was at the huge convention, and I remember just seeing two young guys, and they, I thought they were the owners of Company Cam. I thought this was a brand new thing, and that, and I went over there to try to buy this from them. I went over there to try to, because I'm like, this is gonna be massive.
We were talking. We're like, yeah, we could get in on this thing. Oh, they're already huge.
Yeah. No, they're already, and they're like, no, we work for it. Oh,
okay.
So not only we need to document, we need to show that we document, and we need to stay up on these changing specs all the time, because shocker, specs change, and we can, what might be appropriate tomorrow may not be, or yesterday might not be appropriate tomorrow.
So who keeps track of the changing specs? I mean, you do, and Spraywash Academy is the PWNA. I mean, what's a resource that people can go to readily and get the updates?
I reached out to Clint Reynolds tonight and talked to him just before I came on. I said, hey, I need to put this on the radar, of PWNA. And and one of the things that we probably need to do, or not we, but the PWNA needs to do as an association, is get onto the radar of these manufacturers and get an exemption or an understanding with more and more companies that there are professionals out there who can handle stuff in a professional manner and understand correct pressure and correct chemical use and correct, all this thing. And PWNA kind of did that with the insurance companies whenever everybody got canceled 2 years ago. PWNA was there on the forefront saying, hey, if you've got a certification, you're going to get a discount on your, liability. On there.
I'll tell you, I kind of feel like this is the job of Spraywash. I think this is the job of the PWNA. I think this is the job of Michael Hindeleiter. I think this is the job of AC Lockyer. I think this is the job. I think it is a collective job of all. I think it's your job. I think it's a collective job that we should all be sharing with, because it's not about protecting Doug Gore, Cajun Soft Wash, or any of that. It's about protecting everybody in the industry. And I think that's where, even though a lot of us may have our differences and our different ways of doing things, and egos get in the way sometimes, I think collectively this is one of those areas where we should come together if we find something, and put it out to everybody to share and learn from.
Well, and I'll go back and both.
We should probably get into talking.
Both of these issues. Oh, here we go. So customer factor,
Company Cam, customer factor
would be awesome. And here we go. Jason Matthew Huffner booked our Nashville.
My man, Jason.
There it is.
Good job.
But I want y'all to think about this though. With the we've got specs that are constantly changing. We have to document what's going on. And I know I don't know the full thing on these things that I'm working on, but I know in at least one of them has been a situation to where homeboy thought he was covered with insurance. And guess what? Care control
and custody
fit in there. And they're saying, no, you're the expert. We're not. Our insurance isn't covering your screw ups. I mean, if
it's covering an accident,
had messed a window up, or you screwed a floor coating up because of your negligence, and I don't mean negligence negligence. I mean, that's what they're going to say. You're not necessarily covered if you don't have insurance that covers you for the care, control, and custody.
Yeah, and this is one of them things, again, where we've talked about in the past many times, but it's not enough to get it from your agent. you need to get something from the underwriter that says, yes, these acts are covered, kind of thing, or that you are, get it out, because agents sometimes will say, oh yeah, you would be covered. I think you'd be covered for that. Yeah.
Okay. A quick tip on that. There are two things. So, I mean, who reads your insurance policy? When you get the declaration page, I mean, it's a book, right?
A book. Yeah.
If you have, a membership in something like Legal Shield, or used to be called Prepaid Legal, they'll review documents for you up to a certain number of pages included. And I use that to have an attorney scan my insurance and say, care, custody, control. Because I got bit by that early on when I was broke as a joke. And it hurt so bad because we didn't have any money and we had to cover, an incident. You can also now, ChatGPT, you can run legal documents through it and get it to translate it into layman's terms so you can understand what's going on. So I wouldn't take that to court, but it is really helpful to help you understand what coverage you actually have, because ignorance it won't cut it.
No, ignorance. And so right here, my insurance agent, I was nuts today whenever I asked for that. She said it wasn't needed. This is a perfect example of agents not knowing WTF they're talking about. 100%,
So
I'm dealing with two people that these aren't
small issues.
These aren't small issues. These are at least one total loss in excess of $300,000. And this is another partial loss in excess of $300,000 that the washer's insurance is not covering, guys. It about the only way it gets more serious than that, if there was a loss of life on there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And unfortunately, the insured, and this is how insurances work, but somebody's going to cover that loss. In this case, it's going to be the homeowner's insurance. Now, that homeowner's insurance is not going to go quietly into the night.
Right.
And that homeowner's insurance is coming after the people that, in their mind, caused the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming after them with everything they've got, because they're going to try to recoup some of their losses.
Yeah.
So what's the worst thing you've dealt with in this industry?
Gotcha now.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm very thankful and very blessed. I have had so minor things. Like I've had to pay, 1,000 here, 1,500 there. We had a lady that worked for us that was like, she was pretty strong. She really was eager. She was manhandling a 32-foot ladder. We said, you need help with that? And she's like, no, I got it. She dropped it on somebody's pickup truck in a parking lot. And she needed help, but she was like, she wanted to tough it through. And, we always have to balance the line, because like our insurance would cover that. You go, at what point do you just write a check, or what time do you, when do you file a claim? Because
Absolutely.
I don't want my rates to go up. So we have a threshold, and we just, it's funny on that thing. I was on the job site. My production manager called me, like, Sid, this just happened. What do I do? I'm like, find the owner of that truck before he finds you.
Yeah,
like, go
absolutely.
find him. Go to the coffee shop, start asking around, but you got to find him. And when he found the guy, he's like, hey, little incident with your pickup truck. Can you step outside? The guy immediately is like, is the bicycle okay? And my manager went, what? And turned out, he was a bicycle salesman. He had a $9,000 street race bike on the back on the rack, and the ladder fell on the front and hit the front of the cab. We didn't even notice there was a bike. And when he realized the bike was fine, he was like, oh, you guys are good. I'll get an estimate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Wow.
So Gene's telling us, when we have to request added wording to our policy every year, chemical use is never stated, roof cleaning is rarely stated, and we always have to sign a roofing contractor's amendment to get it in writing. Many other things as well, but those two things are huge, 100%,
Yeah.
And I tell you, this is just, it's downright scary to me what we're seeing on some of this stuff, and these things that I'm working on is really grinding it home of how, man, if you're not being professional at this thing, you're really just playing with fire, guys. I mean, and especially the more you grow, the more it's scary, Sid.
We always say, are you building for today or are you building for tomorrow? And if you're building for tomorrow and something like this happens, you just lost all of tomorrow's.
Yeah.
Man, it's right. So some of the things that cover these bases that are super helpful, because you mentioned earlier, you're talking about document and company cam and all those things, but technically or literally, you can't document everything that you do. I mean, there's just too much. But if you have a safety manual and safety training and safety certifications, and you're a member of a professional association, and you have documents of these are our processes, this is how we protect your property, this is how we protect people, this is how we, and like it's in a manual form. Yeah. And then because we've had a couple of OSHA complaints, and it came back to us, and the OSHA, the first time you did get a letter or a call from OSHA, that's pretty intimidating because their fines start way up here. And they called in like, we had this, and I said, hold up, we are really focused on safety. So what's the issue? And they told me, they said, we need to see your safety manual. We need to see all your documentation. We need to see, photos of this job. And so we have all that, which I was thankful. But there's also a side of me that's like, what? You're going to waste my time making me document this stuff? Guess who's going to waste your time? So I submitted a response that was 187 pages long, knowing that they have to read every bit of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't write 187 pages, but our safety manual is 40 pages, and then our employee manual is 8. I just kept adding stuff. So, and I got a call from them about 2 hours after they got the thing and said, "You're fine. You just don't worry about it. You're good."
You actually have a section in the employee manual in case you ever want to bake brownies while you're on the job. Here's how you do it. And it's an 87 list of
and they have to read the whole thing. Yeah,
but you bring up a great point here, though, because and people know, we went through a horrible accident at Spray Wash.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that stuff in play already and something does happen, guess what? You can never go and create it and backdate. If you need a certain insurance, it's not going to backdate at the time of the insurance.
Especially nowadays.
If you needed an employee to sign off on something, you can't get it backdated. There's, whenever people quit, you can't come back in there and say, look, I really need you to sign this document where you went through this training about safe driving. It's not going to happen. So if you have the meeting, you better get if you have a meeting with compulsory attendance, you better get that documented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just pass the sheet around and sign it.
So Rich is saying, guy had a worker, just gotten his driver's license suspended, didn't tell the owner, drives the company truck, accident, spilled SH, EPA got involved, huge cleanup costs, fines, insurance said, F you, he had a suspended license.
Yeah.
He should not have been driving that truck.
You got to make sure that it's valid.
A horror story, and it could absolutely happen.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We just had, we got a call from an attorney last week, and there's one of the largest hotel chains in the world. We plow snow for them here in Montana. And
snow in Montana?
It once, but it snowed for 6 months straight.
Yeah. I was gonna say Montana gets a crap ton of snow.
We get a bit today.
Yeah, they shut down the interstates and everything.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
But we plow walkways and stuff. We don't do a ton of it, but we have a process. You plow this, you put down so much ice melt, yada yada.
Right.
We have to meet the codes for the city. Everything's got to be clear before 9 a.m. or whatever. Well, some guy slipped and fell and broke an ankle 2.5 years ago, and just now their attorney is starting to make the calls.
Wow.
Because the statute of limitations is 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah. And so they, obviously they're going after the Marriott because they got tons of money. But who pushed the snow? We did. And the Marriott had zero I said the name of the hotel. Sorry. This large chain, whom you know now, they didn't have any documentation. We didn't have a contract. We had a verbal service agreement. Mm-hmm. And of course, we always fulfilled it. It's the only documentation they have is our billing cycle, where we billed for these dates. And we corroborate it. So, they're trying to get a settlement.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I followed all the protocols and stuff. I don't really have a concern. If it turns into a lawsuit, it'll be a pain in the ass no matter what. Win or lose, just a pain in the ass.
And you said something very, very, very important right there, Sid. That's something that attorneys will do, and they do this 100% on
Intentionally.
purpose, but they'll put something in their tickler file like this ankle, because that guy probably didn't just call an attorney and say, broke my ankle 2.5 years ago. What do you think about that? That call was probably made within 6 months of him breaking his ankle.
Probably within 2 months.
He knows good and well that life happens, time happens, crap happens, documents get erased, destroyed, people go out of business. So the longer we can stretch this out, and this is how the legal game works, the longer we can stretch it out, the more chance that Sid the snow pusher doesn't have that documentation anymore.
Are you guys aware that there's actually a service out there for I almost said realtors, for attorneys? And what the service does is it sends attorneys random I'll say cases or potential cases. Okay. So what they'll do is they know about statute of limitations, and they gather the information, and then they send it out to attorneys. Hey, did you know that this guy had a broken ankle on this and this date and this guy? They give them that information.
Wow.
And it was geared towards originally, I think it was geared more towards class action lawsuits because they were trying to gather enough, and then they would send it out to all these different attorneys and see who would pick it up. Well, then it turned into something a little bit different. So there are services that they can that they just send it out, and then that service gets paid a percentage or a fee for sending them that information. So it could have been something where that service just sent them that and contacted the guy, said, hey, Doug, here you broke your ankle 2.5 years ago. Did you ever get any payment for that? No, let us get that taken care of for you.
And it's an automated ambulance chasing is what it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Robo ambulance chasing.
Technically, the attorneys aren't allowed to go out and solicit business. So that's probably a non-attorney customer that's doing that. So rule of the lawsuit, sue everyone possibly involved, let them come to say why they shouldn't be part of the lawsuit. Yeah, absolutely. You sue them all.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So you could be the best guy in the world doing the best job and doing but that's no guarantee that somebody's not going to come after you. And it's just a part of the game.
Right.
Yeah. So
it is. So Sid,
be prepared.
Yeah. I am rude. I apologize. I get passionate, excited. Welcome, by the way. Thank you for coming tonight. And I know everybody in the world knows you. If they don't, they should know you. So please introduce yourself to our audience and tell everybody who you are.
First, thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank
Ray,
you.
Doug. I appreciate you guys. I first met you, Raymond. You spoke right before the keynote speaker at the huge convention in 2019.
I rocked it.
Branson, you killed it. I was like,
nailed it.
When I introduced you, I didn't have much of an introduction because I was just given this thing, and I said it, and I was like, who is this guy? And then you started speaking. I was like, oh, this dude's funny. Oh, he's funny and smart. Oh, he's funny and smart and good looking.
Good looking.
Did I have to go there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what a cool guy. And so I got the chance to meet and get to know you guys at the time.
And
I
incredible
really
hair too.
Oh yeah. It's called streamlined.
Yeah.
Aerodynamic. But anyway, you guys do a ton for the industry and helping a fragmented industry gain its, group together and really be professional. So I really appreciate what you guys do and all that. So my introduction is pretty brief. I started cleaning windows 30 years ago this year. I was like, you're a stereotypical bucket Bob. I knew nothing. I didn't have insurance. I know what the hell I was doing. But I worked hard. And I was just, my entire goal was I have to pay rent in 3 weeks.
Yep.
And that's the only reason I started cleaning windows. Well, it was like, I had a friend that cleaned windows that lived a couple of houses down from me. And I said, hey, Jude, can I go ride with you for a day and just see what you do? And I did. And I was like, that's it? That's all you do? He's like, yeah, it's pretty easy. And he had it was like 5 hours. He had $180 cash, which was like unbelievable to me. That 30 years ago, that was actually
That's a lot of money,
yeah. I was like, well, damn, I'm going to do this anyway. So we stumbled along for a long time. I did power washing and window cleaning in Florida in Clearwater for 8 years. So we moved to Montana. There's not a lot of power washing going on here because it's very arid and it's colder than you can imagine. So, but anyway, we started a window cleaning company here in 2003, so 20 years ago. 5 years ago, I bought well, I have another company. What is it? Sorry, it's an auto detailing company. It's called Shine. And then last year we started a flooring company. I kind of jumped on the bandwagon with the garage floor coatings, and that's going very well. It was also 3 years ago, a few partners and I had the opportunity to invest and purchase a huge convention and help grow it from the foundation that Thad and Chris have built to like, let's let this baby grow up. So when I usually my introduction, someone will say this: Sid Graff has a huge passion for small business, because that's really what I'm all about. It's not what business it is, but when somebody's got the guts to step out and say, I'm going to go to my own, I think I can contribute value to the economy, to society, to people, the customers, and help them. And they've got just the courage to do that and like ditch the job and the paycheck and go for it. I find that very admirable. And so I love to support that. And
I called you a serial on your introduction video there, or not video, but text.
The one that disappeared?
And I called
the
you
disappearing.
a serial entrepreneur, on the graphic today. So
wait, did you just say an entrepreneurial whore? Is that what you said?
no, I said I called you a serial entrepreneur, not an entrepreneurial whore. Although I kind of like that. That's it's really not a bad description of us all.
I think of it.
There
Yeah.
you go.
We'll just keep going. But
So, which one of us is the skanky? Never mind. The skanky whore.
the skanky whore.
Because you got the high class of it. Never mind.
Yeah, it's true. But at some point you go, hey, just have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
But
let's just,
I mean,
New
honestly,
topic.
though, but it's still, if you think about that, it's okay.
Race
Yeah,
building
It
analogies.
was reminded of an old joke, where the person, they were like, well, would you establish, would you have, illicit relations with somebody for, $1 million? And somebody said, well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, $1 million is a lot of money. And then, the guy said, well, would you go out back, into my truck for $20? And they're like, oh God, no, absolutely not. And the guy looked at him and he said, look, we've already established what you are. Now we're just negotiating
price. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I once had a very wealthy friend that said money changes people sometimes, and you have to look at it, and money will make people do things that they wouldn't normally do sometimes, and it's true. A lot of times people will do things that they wouldn't normally do if they see the right dollar floating in front of them, and I think that's even where the earlier conversation kind of comes from, where you see this industry and you think, man, there's a lot of money. I can just go out there and grab it. And you do it without the right education, without knowing. And I think that a lot of guys that start off, they don't realize the education that's out there. They don't realize that places like the huge convention have so much information right there at their fingertips before they even get started, or once they're a year into it, 2 years into it, 3 years or 10 years into it. And those things that you pick up that can really mold and shape and take your business in a different and more professional direction, even though you've been there for, like I said, 10 years and you just didn't realize, hey, there's these things that are out there, right?
Yeah, for sure. So part of my background, I mentioned I started cleaning windows 30 years ago. I was the Bucket Sid. And like, I was a solo operator, just a guy. I owned a job. I didn't own a business for years, almost 20 years. About 10 years ago, I started getting serious about building a business. And I went to my first industry event in 2016, the huge convention. Mm-hmm. Like I'd gone over 20 years, never gone to, and seriously, when somebody first said, hey, you should go to the such and such, thing, I was like, what do they know? I know everything. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. You talk about a child in diapers at 15 years in business. I knew nothing. I mean, I was a hardworking dude, but I sucked. Once I started learning the training and the professionalism and the things that are out there, it's like, oh my God, this is a real business, real people.
I think,
making a real difference.
That big fish in a small pond mentality a lot of times. And I remember going to my first one was NOLA, that I went to, and you know, you're sitting there talking, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. I mean, I'm doing
I'm
600,000
knocking out 350 grand a year.
bucks, and
Mhm.
man, I'm the biggest, baddest guy in Tallahassee, Florida. And then next thing you're sitting next to somebody, and you sit there, and you're like, yeah, I do $600,000 a year. And the guy's like, oh, that's awesome. I remember whenever I did that on my way to $3 million a year, you know, and it's like, oh, shut up now.
It's
And
a humbling experience.
realize real quick, you know, in fact, these very words, you know, came out of my mouth today with a customer. One of those customers who's become a friend was in there, and we were talking about, hey, have you heard from so and so? And he's like, yeah, to be honest, just not my circle, not my people anymore. He said, Ray, he said, about the time that you sold Spray Wash, I got real serious, and I realized it was kind of cool. I realized a huge opportunity had opened up in Tallahassee, and with you selling out, and there was a sea change, and that I could expand this company and go a lot bigger off. And I've just stopped with a lot of my friends, and I said, yeah, well, you know, he's like, because I was, you know, I think they were holding me back, and
It's true about your circle.
the old adage came up, and I said, well, you know what they say, if you find yourself to be the smartest guy in a room, you need to find another room.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. So that's like, I don't want to use this as to pump the huge convention, but any good event, like that's why you go to associate with people they're doing it better than you, that are smarter than you, that have bigger vision than you, because those things are contagious. I mean, I first went to the huge convention. It was in National Harbor outside of DC, and the morning session, Mr. Phenomenal was talking.
Yeah.
Howard Partridge. And I was like, man, this guy is a pro. But I was sitting next to, you guys probably, you know, Brian Haggerty.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I was sitting next to him and talking, and his business was about twice the size of mine. I was like, oh, dude, can I buy you lunch? He's like, yeah, come on, let's go. So we go to lunch, and we were talking about stuff. And I said, and he asked me a question as we talking. I was like, hey, I've got this issue with accounts receivables. And first thing he said, because he's Brian in his jersey, he's like, dude, that's effing stupid. You should never have that much money owed to you. And I'm like, what? How do you get around it? He's like, do this, this, and this is what we do. And I was like, really? And I took his advice and did it. It added $50,000 to our bottom line in 2 years.
Mhm.
I was like, and he bought my lunch. I was like, wow, I'm never going to miss another one of these things. But like,
Brian's a
now
smart guy. He really is.
he's a smart guy. But you meet people like that, and you either meet people that you can share with equally, or you're learning from, or that you can teach. So there's like, you're helping or you're getting helped, but expanding your circle to people that are outside, they're in the same industry, but outside of your area. So you could call them up. Like if I was in power washing, I would not hesitate to call you and like, hey, Doug, I've got this thing. Could you help me out? And you would not hesitate to tell me, because we are never going to compete. You're in Florida or Louisiana, and I'm in Montana. Like that's huge value, right?
Major difference.
Yeah. And then
for you there, you know?
Yeah, the next step is like then like the commitment to go from like industry events are fantastic. I mean, I believe that we have one, but then to like find a mastermind or a group that costs money enough that makes you pay attention and go to that, and people that are not in your industry.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the Strategic Coach, I don't know if you've heard of that, and this is not a plug for them, but I've been with the Strategic Coach, did it for 3 years, and it's $12,000 a year. And it hurt for me to pay that. Plus you have to travel every quarter, but I'm with people that are like, they're making 3, 4, 5 times what I make net. Right.
Mhm.
And so they see things differently, and also they're in different industries. So they view your stuff from a different facet.
And that is super important. If you get somebody outside of the industry looking in at your business and what you do, I don't think there's sometimes even a better value of what you can get, because every time we think about things, we think, oh man, yeah, well, SH, yeah, man, we use SH and we're this and we're that. And we're so used to everything that we're doing and saying that we're not seeing the outside picture. And so when
Yeah.
somebody comes in that's outside, has no knowledge of what we do, how we do, or why we do, they can bring such a perspective that it can just blow your mind. I never thought about that, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at different industries and like giant breakthroughs in different industries, almost always the big breakthroughs come from someone that wasn't part of that industry. A new person that steps in, they see it a different way. They're like, oh, if you just use this technology, boom. There's a phrase or a saying that says you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Because we get in these echo chambers of like window cleaning, squeegee, power wash, HS, truck mount, this, that, what, and we're all talking about the same thing. And so you can only make incremental improvements. But if somebody comes from the outside that they're not, they've never power washed anything, but they know how to write ad copy or do ad placements, they'll see your business in a way that'll make it go double, triple, quadruple, like bam,
overnight.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and they're going to look at it from a perspective, because so many of us get so caught up in the wonkiness of our business. And I don't mean this to be, insulting to anybody that's out there, but daily doing what I do with the power wash store now, I talk to people, and some of them are so caught up on equipment specifications, and they can tell you what the pressure drop on their machine is at 100 foot of hose, 125 foot of hose, 150 foot of hose. They can tell you the difference of the draw from the downstreamer on 100, 150, 200 foot on there. They can tell you that the draw difference between a 1.8, a 2.1, a 2.3, et cetera, et cetera. And they get so incredibly wonky about this, but at the same time, they are completely unable to create business or get business, or because they're so caught up on that equipment side
overload.
mentality.
It's the technician conundrum where, like, if you're a really great technician and you're like, you've been nerding out on tools and that's been your world for a long time, and like that's what you're going to think about is what's the next best little incremental change. And in every industry has their question, right? It's like power wash versus soft wash, or is it, should I do traditional squeegeeing versus water fed pole, or is it, carpet cleaning is truck mount versus portable, or whatever. Like if that's your question, you're asking the wrong question. Exactly. If you want to grow your business, if you just want to be a little bit better technician, great. But what's a better question? I mean, even a small change would be, like, instead of how can I get another customer at a house, like would it be better to get one customer that is one house that gets cleaned once a year, or to get the customer of an HOA, become a member of CAI, right? And then you get one HOA that's got 500 houses in it, or 500 townhomes. But that's a better question than what's the pressure drop from 100 to 120 foot hose. So I don't really I don't care at that point. I just want to, like, I just got a $400,000 contract, not a $4,000 contract. That's a much better question.
$400 contract. Yeah.
And I want to say this to Mitch. Mitch, go back and make sure you watch the replay of this episode after it's done, because I just reread. I read the CertainTeed information from today on their website, where it actually says we don't recommend power washing on there, which is crazy, which I think could really, really, really benefit you, because if you look at the exact wording, and I can always email this to you or text it to you, but I think something that you are working on could really benefit you very well with this, Mr. Mitch. So,
and Mr. Mitch, while we have your attention, I'm gonna throw it out there. I'd like to have you come on with us here in a couple of weeks and talk about your adventure that you just went on, because I think a lot of people will find that very cool. For those of you that don't know, Mitch went on a whirlwind around the world tour, cleaning places all around the world, actually. So it was kind of fun to watch him. with what he was doing. So
Yeah, it really was. It really, really was.
That's cool.
yeah, actually, just as a outward thought, Sid, I mean, it might even be a good thing to have, on at the Huge. I don't know, because a breakout class on what he was doing for traveling around the world, but some of the outward things that he does, and it'd be a good one to sit and listen to, I think.
Yeah,
Although
could you connect us? Yeah, if you could connect Mitch and I think that'd be great. Because we're kicking off our interview series again. So every year leading up to the Huge, we do an interview series with our speakers, and then with a lot of our vendors, and you guys will be on. One thing that I really want to do, we just haven't done, because everybody's got so much time and capacity. But so I do most of the interviews, and I would love to just interview people in the industry that have a really interesting story, like overall Bob. Bob, is it Buchner? I can't think of his last name. Buchin, but he's an older gentleman. He used to be homeless. Now he's got a reasonable size power washing company. He's in the South, and like he raised himself up from like below zero to doing well. But now he mentors young kids that like have gotten,
awesome.
Maybe gotten into trouble, and they're maybe they were juvie or not. So he's like mentoring these guys, but he can speak their language because he's been in the gutter. And he's a really fascinating, very generous man. It's like super, loves God. He's humble, but he's done a great thing. But to interview some of those people, just to get the, kind of the human interest stories, like what you're talking about with Mitch, like cleaning around the world. I love to do that. I'd love to.
Jody Pastori would be a really good one for you to talk to as well. He's, one of our members, just an amazing guy. He was a chaplain with a Green Beret detachment. And they wound up, you go into the Army thinking you're a chaplain. So, okay, cool. Well, it turns out that, during the Iraqi conflict, that a lot of their holy men actually wanted to talk to another holy man to have them. So he's literally going into combat zones with a Green Beret detachment being shot at. And he's amazing, but he's come on before and talked about his hiring secret. He never has a hiring problem because he goes to halfway houses and rehabs that are court ordered. And that's his whole model for employees. Wow. And his other employees that are in the program keep the other guys straight because it's a zero tolerance type program.
That's cool.
And he's got a really good, really strong.
He's a lover of Christ, and he just wants to mentor and share and help these guys, and just one of the most inspirational people in the world. With just anybody that can like hold a Bible and they believe the word, and they could also probably kill you with this book too.
That's right. They've got a knife inside the cover.
Yeah, it's
just wait for me to open this and pull out.
So JMH, I want to answer that question. How do you get a place to trust my part-timer to be a full-timer without you there? Growing is super hard. You know what? Sometimes what's the old Nike campaign is just do it. I had the hardest time with it, and I remember what I would do is I would be there with my guys, and I'd be on every job, and then eventually I realized, okay, I can drop this trailer, and what I'm going to do is drop this trailer. And I'm going to go do a couple of estimate calls, because all I'm doing is sitting in the truck at this point while my guys are working. I'm going to go do a couple of estimate calls, and started doing that, and realized I came back and the house was still standing. Now, this is 2011 or so, and all of a sudden a light went off going, oh my goodness, I don't have to maybe spray that hose. I can let these guys spray the hose. And, at some point you have to let them grow or wither on the vine and under their own thing. Yeah.
That's actually one of the questions we seem to get quite a bit. I've dealt with that question already again this week. Matter of fact, 2 days ago, Ray, I was telling you about the person that called about that. And, there are definitely things that you can do to get yourself off the truck and to get him into that spray mentality. And I think that's That's where I think the huge convention is also making some changes, right? Because they're not just gearing towards the owner operator. They're gearing towards the business growth factor, but they're also growing towards teaching technicians and bringing your technician and bringing your family. That's something that we didn't see before. That is definitely the transition now. So I do know that there are going to be classes very specific for the technicians, and that might be something to consider, bringing some of your technicians along with you to the huge convention. And it's only an extra $125 per technician. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah. So that's a really good idea. So there are a couple of things there with bringing it. So Jason, by the way, hello. I didn't say hi to you yet. Jason brought his family last year, brought his wife, brought his son, and had a great time. But when you bring an employee, not only it's like what they learn is a benefit to them and a benefit to your company, but the trust that you show in them and the believing you show in them to invest the time and money to bring them, like it's a bigger deal for them than it is for you.
Yeah.
It's like your team will be like, dude, I have the first 3 guys I took to the convention a few years ago, and then 2 of the same ones went last year. And they still talk about the first. They're like, man, you remember we did this thing? We got to go to the convention. And then the rest of the team was looking at them like, why you're so special? Like they had been elevated just because they got to go do something industry-wide.
So are those 3 employees still with you?
2 of the 3. One actually started his own business, and he still subcontracts work for us. But 2 of the 3 are still with us.
I took to one of the associations that will not be mentioned, but carried them down to me, with me, and they talked about it literally until the company was sold. Going to that, and how much they enjoyed that, and how as long as they were with the company, because not all of them made it till the end, but it was so just oomph to them to be a part of that.
Well, it puts extra fuel in their tank, because they're like, oh my gosh, the boss believes in me enough to invest in me. Like like my guys set up a little straighter. You made sure they represented really well. It was a big deal. I want to speak to that just a little bit, because the huge convention has grown so much over the years. The last few years since we took over, like there's been tons of business oriented education in the past, and that's where we put our focus. Like we want to help you grow your business. Like you're going to learn your technical stuff here, somewhere else. You learn how to run a business here, and learn how to like step it up. And so we focus on make sure the trade show is world class. Make sure the education and the speakers are world class, and then make sure to allow a framework where the networking can be really valuable and beneficial. And it's we don't really police the event. There have been we try to make sure that the standards are high, so that we don't have a lot of arguments in the hallway about water-fed pole versus a squeegee, right? Let's eliminate that and focus on how we build a business. But we toe dipped into, and we helped build the admin rockstar training a year and a half ago, and that's gone really well. And then now Michelle and Pete Collar's people, they've taken that on their own. But we're looking at we want to have training for your admin, training for your sales guys, because those are universal principle things. Right. When you get into technical training, everybody's got their preferences. Yeah. But the universality is where we can step in, because like you guys do Spray Wash Academy, we're never going to try to teach something like that. Like that's your guys' realm, like the safety, the protection, the things. Like, but what we would teach is like for an employee, like what are 10 ways? I won't list them all, but what are 10 things you can do that cost nothing to make you a better employee? Will put more money in your pocket this year. Well, be on time. Well, what does that mean? Show up on time prepared, show up on time ready to give, show up on time ready to give with a great attitude and smile. It's like, if you just do that, your day is going to be so much better. And you're like, how's it going to make me more money? Do it for 2 weeks. You'll make more money. You'll start getting tips. You'll get a promotion. You'll start like the things you can do as employee that supports your company. And I will relate one little anecdote. Back in Florida, when I did power washing and window cleaning, I had 2 employees. I may or may not have been paying them legally on payroll. We don't know. but they were getting paid. And one guy is named Mike Becker, and he was 19 years old, and he was riding with me in the van. And I said, Mike, do you know what your job is working with me? And he looked at me dead serious, and he said, Sid, my job is to make you money as much as I can. And I thought, it blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, this guy's thinking about the company, not himself. But the more he tried to make us money, the more he made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And getting that, it's a mind shift change, and it's hard to find employees to do that. Or at least we think it's hard to find employees to do that. But just by showing them, again, same thing. I brought one of the technicians that I brought to the huge convention. I mean, he is still with the company today, and that elevated him, just like you're saying, to where he's like, wow, I mean, this means something to me. And I actually do have a future here. I can help build my future, kind of a thing. And so I think it is a big thing bringing them to the convention and learning those different things along the way. It's not just about you and the company. It has to be about the employees and the customers as well. And actually kind of your last sometimes. If you elevate them, they're going to naturally elevate you. And you got to make it all work together as you're growing your business.
But JM, talk about this comment here. Spend a lot of time building our business. The fear of trusting someone with hold my family out of a very hard spot causes chronic chest pain. But you can trust but verify. I mean, don't get me wrong. Whenever I first started dropping the trailer off and letting guys go do this, you can bet that I walked my tail off around that building and made sure everything was okay several times until they, proved that to me. So you don't necessarily, I mean, at some point though, you have to believe in yourself. And by that, I mean, do you believe you've trained them well enough? Because let's remember, the buck winds up stopping with you. And in some ways, if they fail, it's because you failed. And it could wind up being morons and meth heads and stuff like that. But,
that happens.
And it does happen. I mean, God knows it does. But, if you've done the proper training, if they're a decent human being, then honestly, you got this, man. Sometimes, but it's us as business owners that hold ourselves back where technicians are.
And I think the fear is the biggest factor. I mean, we're talking about growing your business or getting off the truck and all that thing. Fear and inaction are the two biggest factors of why you're not going someplace a lot of times. We have the fear of turning it over. Sometimes that's ego, but then it's also the excuse that we always use. Oh man, I can't find anybody to do this and I can't find anybody to do that. Okay. What are you doing to find that person? Well, I ran an ad 3 weeks ago. Okay. What are you doing right now today to find people? Okay. All you're doing right now, the only thing I hear is nothing more than an excuse.
Yeah. MTH, getting very close to having to make a decision to leave my job of 17 years for this full time. Wife just doesn't get how many sleepless nights this has been. Well, I would say one thing though, at 17 years, if you have some kind of retirement and you're actually close to getting vested in that, now but I'm guessing if you're actually thinking about this decision, then you probably don't have that vested retirement or you're already vested in it because, 3 years goes by like that. So I would, if it's going to impact retirement plans or retirement savings, I definitely would hold out for another 3 years.
For 3 years, I would hold out.
But otherwise, what the heck's stopping you, MTH? Come on, man, do it.
I know, and this is going several years back, but I mean, I've actually talked with several people where, when you talk to some people, you can get an understanding of where their brain is at and whether or not they're going to be a success by their motivations and what motivates them. And I remember talking to a guy making $80,000 a year. And I'm like, dude, everything you're telling me, you should quit your job and go full time. He's like, man, I'm just so scared. I'm like, look at what you're doing already weekend wise and how you're booking out and doing this. But the only thing is that one of the guys that I did that with, he was getting ready to quit when wintertime was coming up. I'm like, no, don't do that. Wait until after winter, then pick up, And sure enough, that very next year, the guy had done $170,000. I think it was $170,000 in business, And at that point, 75% was profit. He blew away his own
Wow.
expectations. And that's what makes, I think, all three of us that you see on here feel good about what we do. And those are the things that I think some of the advice that I gave him actually came from communication I had with people at the huge convention.
So, wow, Mitch, what am I, chopped liver? I mean,
Hey, what about that?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So there's something else later
but I
in here.
agree,
Is that-
Tommy is a very good speaker. Yes.
yeah, and apparently he does his stuff quite well.
Yeah,
And he's
apparently he's
Apparently.
smart and yeah.
He does okay. So
Yeah.
a lot of the stages of business growth I've gone through, I've been broke as a joke. I've had nothing. I've run my own thing. I've made $1. I've made $100. We get, you got 100,000, whatever your benchmarks are, the 7-figure business, and those are all wonderful. But I've not done 8 figures. I've never broken the $10 million revenue mark or 9 figures like Mello. 100 million, 200 million. So there's always some place you can go to learn. One of the critical things that a lot of people overlook when you're transitioning or you want to grow in your business is you can make a big change with just a tiny shift in the way that you think. And here's an example. He's like, I used to introduce myself all the time. It's like, hey, I'm Sid the window cleaner. Sid the window. What do you do? I'm a window cleaner. And then one day I was like, I'm not gonna be the window cleaner anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. I love it. But I was like, I want people in my community to view me as a business owner and a contributor to the community. So I started volunteering more with nonprofits. I got on the board of a nonprofit. As soon as I volunteered, I mean, those people are all like hungry for leadership. So they asked me to be on the board, and so I did. But I just started in my mind. I was like, I'm a business owner. People say, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a business owner. I'm a business builder. I'm like, really?
I just happened to wash. I just happened to wash.
Yeah.
Windows.
What's your business? I have a window cleaning company. We're like, oh, that's cool. And then we changed it again a couple more times. The most recent iteration, the year before last, we realized like, we clean windows. And you probably heard people say this. Kirk Kempton's first person, I heard it with his business. He said, we're a customer service business that just happens to clean windows.
Yep,
I'm like,
exactly.
that's a great perspective. We took it in a different direction for us. I was like, I want to have our company be a leadership training program for young men and women. I want to teach these young men and women how to lead. So that's what we are. We're a window cleaning company, but we're a leadership training company. So I'm training up leaders for the next generation. And because some people stay with us 10 years, my production manager, this is his 13th year with the company. Some people come and go in a season. I want to make sure that when they start to when they leave, that they're better equipped to handle life, that they're more of a giver than a taker. They're like, we want to help give them a direction for growth and to become a leader and help them recognize just how simple it is to lead. Like, don't be afraid, just step out and just lead. That sounds really trite. I don't mean it like that, but it's like, you don't have to wait for somebody to give you a title and permission to step up and say, how can I help with that? Let me help you do that. How can I make this world a better place?
Yeah. In with that, when you go to the convention, and I know I harp on it all the time, but when you go to the convention, don't just sit in the corner by yourself. Interact with others. Try to break yourself out of your shell and go introduce yourself to Sid. Go introduce yourself to Ray, to myself, and to other speakers. And if you know somebody, you see their hat on, and they're another power washing company or they're a window company, or what you do, go introduce yourself. Wear your colors, wear your hat, wear your shirt, so that people know who you are, where you're from. They can approach you. Y'all can build up for me, it's not just about helping somebody in Montana, right? I help people right here in the greater Baton Rouge area. And you'd be surprised at how they will help you. So wear your shirts, bring business cards with you to share around and do all that kind of stuff. Interact. You got
one of the greatest feelings in the world I had on Thursday. I had a young man who he now lives in Tennessee. We still converse, regularly on Facebook. So he and Finn are the same age, and he was working for me whenever his wife, Randy, was pregnant. And so I was there for the birth of his child and watched as the kid grew up. We still got pictures whenever he was 3 years old. I had a really good Canon, professional camera. He went and took this kid out to the pumpkin patch. Well, he left, probably 4 years ago, and he had an opportunity, and I said, dude, do it. You know what? If this isn't your forever job, I'll miss you, but if it's not your forever job, I totally understand. And he now he manages a group home for mentally challenged adults, but he came through.
Excuse me.
And bless you. And he literally is, one of his things on his list is like, I had to come by and just see you in person, even though we already talk on Facebook all the time, and just give me a hug. And so many of these young men have said, like, you've been like the father or the creepy uncle, or, just you've been seminal in my life for whatever reason. And that becomes such an amazing feeling to know that even if somebody goes off and creates their own business, and I mean, I've encouraged so many old employees of mine, I want you to
do well in life.
Skills to where you might be my competition one day, and that is great. I would love that. You're going to be a leg up. And still, if any of my old employees, they are so revered around Tallahassee, you could go to any pressure washing company in this area and say, I worked with Ray, and you're going to immediately be at $65,000 to $80,000 a year, just like that, because of the pedigree you came from. And it's such an amazing feeling to know that you've had an impact on people's lives like this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Because I'm gonna have to pop off in just a minute. I promised my wife after a long day that I was gonna spend some time with her.
My dad, but with much less hair and a drinking platform. So
very fatherly. I think the weird uncle comment you probably get a lot.
Yeah.
So I would tell you a quick anecdotal story. It was last year. I was talking with some of my team, and they're all younger than me by a stretch, but they're all I think our oldest guy is 32. So way back. So my dad passed away when I was younger, when I was 19. So I lost my dad early, and I'm talking to these young men and women, and just in the conversation, I realized that 5 of the people that work for me, 5 of these young men and women, lost their father between age 5 and age 15. They're like, they didn't grow up with a dad. And I was like, it pressed on me pretty heavily to go. I was like, this is not, I mean, I want to be a leadership training program, but I was like, I became the proxy father figure for some of the people that work for me, because they never had a positive image of a dad. And I'm like, I get to show them, a part of me. And sometimes you're like, you got to keep a separation between your employees and stuff. And I believe that. But at the same time, you can still help and mentor and guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can still be a friend and a boss, but you do have to keep separation. But
yeah.
Well, what are your parting thoughts for us there?
You know who gets? Yeah, honestly, you know who gets hers? Hey, Nikki, I haven't thanked y'all for the birthday wishes. I hope y'all are doing well. And tell Brad I meant to write him back. I haven't responded to anybody, but thank y'all for the birthday wishes. Whenever we let employees into our lives, like really, really hardcore like that, who winds up getting hurt worse than the employees does? We do a lot of times on that. I mean, you can get your heart absolutely ripped out at some points,
True. But I think that's what happened. You always have the risk of getting your heart broken anytime you love somebody. Like anytime you open yourself, whether it's an employee, a friend, a family member, a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse. I mean, the closer you get, the more potential there is for there to be a riff or a heartbreak. But there's also no other better way to make it rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. True.
So
it's just a course of life.
We need to let you go fight the bears off of dinner, right? So that's all Montana.
Okay. Last year I was on a show similar, And I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I have to go.
Oh, that was
And they're-
actually it was with us.
was it you? It
Yeah,
was a
it was-
bear
yeah,
going through my yard, and my dogs were going ballistic. And
yeah. That was us.
so we had this bear last year that got so comfortable in the neighborhood. He would nap in a tree just outside the window I'm looking at. He'd go to near our backyard and just like I'd go out and yell at him. The dogs would bark, and he'd just scratch his ass on a tree and lay down and take a nap like 40 feet from the house. Two of my guys called me from a job, and they're like, "Sid, got a question for you. I'm not quite sure what to do." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" Because they rarely call me. And they're like, "Yeah, we're over here at this house, and it's like 2 miles from where I live, and we're on the roof cleaning the gutters, and there's a bear, like down in the driveway, but he won't leave. What do we do?" I'm like, if you can make some noise, that'd be good, but otherwise, just wait for him to go away. Well, before that, the bear actually, instead of leaving, it went through the dog door into these guys' garage.
Oh wow.
So I was like, you should probably call the homeowner. So they called the homeowner, and the guy's like, "Oh shit. When he leaves, can you please, I'll give you the code to the house, go in the garage and make sure, like, see if he tore anything up. But let me know if there's another dog door that went into the house from the garage." He's like, just go and look inside and make sure he didn't like destroy shit in the house. And so anyway, he did get into a big giant 50-pound bag of birdseed, made a mess, but he didn't go into their house. So then our guys were like, they finally got to get off the roof once the bear was big and fat. Anyway.
Ironically, we used, people don't think of bears in Florida, but we have a ton of black bears in Florida. Not the big, massive, grizzlies and things that y'all have, but we had
Black bears can be aggressive.
Well, we had our beach house, and the black bear that would visit us quite often underneath the and go to the trash cans that were because it was a beach house and it was raised up on 18-foot pilings, and you had to make noise coming down the stairs, or there could be a Florida black bear waiting there for you.
Yeah, here, watch this. Count down till I get back on screen. Ready?
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh,
that's how close it is. This is the bear spray.
Nice.
And it's like there's a certain time of year. It's like, got a can of bear spray in the office. I don't need it in the office, but if I'm going on a hike, even around my home, I'm like, grab the bear spray. You just got to have it. It's the first time we first moved here. Me and a buddy from Florida, we went on a big hike, and oh yeah, there you go. You get your
bear spray. My bear spray right there.
I was like, what if we see a bear? I had never heard of bear spray. I was like, yeah, I've just had I packed a 9mm, and then I was telling a local, I was like, yeah, I went on a hike, but I took my 9, and he was like, you are an effing idiot.
Right. You're just
like, what are you talking about? He's like, you want to piss off a bear and get killed? Shoot him with a 9.
Yeah,
like that's no good. So
remember Blazing Saddles, where the guy's like, Sheriff Bart straps on his gun, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, he goes, no, don't shoot him. You're just going to make him mad."
Yeah, like that. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, and this is flipping back around to the huge. Last year, you guys are teaching and you're running your classes and stuff. Were you in the main room when Michael Burnoff opened the room on day 2?
No,
I was not.
Okay, so I didn't. I had only heard like this much about him, but he was our opening speaker on day 2, and this guy. So he is our one of our keynotes on day 1, Michael Burnoff, and he's like he's a speaker, but he's a practitioner of NLP, neuro linguistic programming. I kind of think of him. He's like the working man's Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
he's approachable and he's doable, but like in the few minutes he had with that room, he handled some things that I was stumped with how great he is at judo throwing objections. And he's not a power washer, but he's like, what's common objection you guys get? He's like, it's too expensive. He's like, so what do you do when somebody says it's too expensive? And there you go, like, what do? You fumble for price. You go like, well, maybe we can give you a discount, or we could leave off the fence if you do this, or right. And he says, I'm going to teach you what to say, so you don't have to deal with that objection anymore. It's like, and I'm like, I'm excited. And so he role played, and he said, the guy says, "What's too expensive?" And you go, oh God, I have to remember what he said. He said, actually, it's the going rate. So he's like, that was the response. Like, actually, it's the going rate. Well, it's not expensive. It's just unexpected. You weren't expecting that professional power washing costs this much.
Right.
But it's like, it's such a simple thing to do to diffuse and drop an objection. Because if you go $1,000, that's a lot of money. You go, actually, that's the going rate. Then you're like, oh, well, I guess it's not about money. It's about who's going to do the best job, or whatever criteria you have.
We have, like if balloons. You'd float a trial balloon or a trial close, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's like so if all this sound, so are you comfortable in the $800 range or what? That trial balloon where you're not really trying to close them,
but you're giving them numbers,
close on there. You realize that customers do that to us as well, and they will give us trial objections, and just like that. Well, that's too expensive, and so if we can simply diffuse, pop your trial balloon like that, your trial objection, guess what? That objection's done. You don't have that objection to go back to anymore. You can't.
Most of the time, people don't even know what their actual objection is.
I've popped your that's expensive already because it's really not. It isn't. And we sometimes forget, and we start rolling around in the mud with the customers.
Never want to do that.
It just hurts us. It just winds up hurting us,
You just have to step, like most of the time we just take things at face value, and somebody's go, oh, that's too expensive. And you're like, well, but if you could just step to the side, like King says, burn off's amazing. You just change the conversation. And sometimes I'll say, well, your mom probably told you the same thing my mom did, is that you do get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So are you just looking for a cheap price? Well, there are people in town that'll give you a cheap price, but you do get what you pay for. And then like suddenly price is like, that's no longer the issue, because now they think of price as, because I just repositioned it to go, price isn't something that's a lot. Like you want to avoid paying a low price because you're going to get a shit job. Like
that's why my favorite was always compared to. If somebody would say, well, the price is pretty high, I'd say, oh yeah, and what is that compared to, if you don't mind me asking? Because they sometimes they have no idea. They thought that power washing should cost $20 to do the driveway, and when you hit them with 200, and they're like, well, that just seems really expensive. Okay, and what are we comparing that to? And then they're like, well, no, I just didn't know, or I got an estimate from this guy, 5 minutes before you, and then that's when you can slide into the there is that thing where you get what you pay for. You always have to transition that and try to figure out what the real objection is.
There's a place in the market for everybody, and an old Southern boy saying that we have down here is sometimes whenever you start fighting with the customer, instead of dismissing the objections, like with a quick dismissal, instead we want to get in there and fight about the objection. And a Southern boy saying that we have is, you don't wrestle with a pig, because what happens is you'll just get muddy and the pig will enjoy it. Because that's what the pigs do. And that's not, being an insulting or defamatory, thing about the pig, but about a customer. But it's just saying that whenever you go down to what their level is and you start fighting on those objections on their level, it's a no-win for
you. You've already lost.
Yeah, you've already lost.
I do need to go, but I would love it if you let me share one thing before I go. So my podcast, and this is kind of how I got tied in with the huge convention. So my podcast is the 80/20 service business podcast. And it's all about how to get bigger results with smaller efforts. Like, because there's always leverage within your business, whether you're a one-man operation or you've got 100 employees, there are ways that you can leverage to do something better. So like, for whether you're 1 or 50, like if you're a $100,000 company or a $10 million company, one of the most ideal things you could do is simply raise your prices. Especially when you're small, because when you're starting off and you're small and you're in that hustle, and you're hungry, and maybe you got to pay rent and you're scared that you're going to not make enough money. Like
Mhm.
you'll almost say yes to anything.
Yeah.
But like a miraculous thing to do is just go like raise your prices to a level that makes you uncomfortable. If you're tracking your closing rates and you're closing 80-90% of your jobs, raise your price until you're only closing half.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? That'll give me half as much work. Yeah, but your net
You're
margin
still making the
is
same
going to,
amount of money.
You know,
you'll make more money. And it honestly is it's a disservice to your customers if you don't raise your prices. And here's why. Because if you raise your prices, you don't have to hustle or like shave corners off to try to make your money. You can spend the time you need to serve them really well.
Do a
And
quality job.
you got fewer customers to deal with, so you can give them more attention. So like, but the beautiful thing is that like if your net margin, it's let's say you've got employees and you have some overhead, so your net margin is 25%. If you know, a lot of people go, well, like, you know, can you give a discount or whatever? A 10% discount does what to your net margin? 10% of $1,000 job is $100. It's not a big deal. But if your net margin is 25%, now your margin just went down to 15%. You gave away almost half your profit. But the same thing goes if you just raise your prices by, let's say it's 20%. Now that net margin, it doesn't sliding scale. It just goes to the bottom line. That extra 20%, now your net margin is 45%, not 25%.
and Sid, on that too, let's say that you are banging out, you know, let's raise our prices 20%, and 20% of your customers leave you because of the new rates. Well,
You're still doing better.
it's a wash. I mean, it's actually not a
Mhm.
wash. I mean, it's a money wise, it's a wash. You're doing 20% less business, but you're making the same amount of money because you went up on your rates, and now you've got more time to go out and get more business or do what you want to do.
Yes. And there's another level to that is that generally when you raise your prices and you lose customers, because you will lose some, you
Absolutely.
usually lose customers off the bottom. It's like not all your customers are the
Right.
same with the
Right. You're not
80-20 principle. It's like this is not exact. 80-20 is a ratio and it's not exact. You know, it's not a formula, it's a principle. So it's like you typically go 20% of your clients generate 80% of your income. Now for my business, we analyze this every year. Last year it was like 63% of our income came from the top 20% of our customers. So it's a disproportionate amount. But if I lose off the bottom, I'm usually losing
you
customers
really losing?
that
You're
no,
not.
they actually cost me money. So that 10 or 20% that I lose actually saves me time and saves me money. So the 20% increase is still a 20% increase.
Right. You know, it's you know, the 80-20 rule is what they call that the Pareto principle
Yeah.
on there. And it's so
I want it to be the Dorito principle. Can we just make that change for everybody?
the
It's the
Dorito.
Dorito principle.
Make it easy. The
Yeah.
cheesy Dorito.
But the 80-20 rule originally was thought to be by people saying that 80% of businesses, I'm sorry, 20% of businesses in a market will dominate 80% of the income in that, or they'll do 80% of the work. And it also, they realized that it was true though about a lot of things, that 80% of your customers will, you know, or 20% of your customers will generate 80% of your income, kind of like what you were saying, but you know, yours is more of a 60-20 rule on there. But you know, another good old fashioned Southern saying that I have, and I'm just full of those, is the cream always rises on there. And it kind of like shows that even though there could be 1,000 pressure washers in your area, really only about 20% of them are garnering 80% of that business. And
yeah,
again, that's true as well too. I mean, I've seen that too much from my local market numbers.
One of the things that we're always saying is raise your prices, and it's something that a lot of people don't get as we say, and we try to explain it to them. Just again, I talked to somebody just a couple of days ago, and when he was telling me his problem, the very first thing I said was, you need to look at raising your prices. And that's because the same thing, it's a time factor issue. Yes, you're going to lose some people, but you're always complaining that you don't have time. Your booking's too far out and this sort of thing. Raising your prices that little bit, 20%. Hey, you know what? Yeah, you're going to lose some, but you're going to gain so much time, which gives you the ability to do the other things that you wanted to do and needed to do. And you're not losing any money when you do it.
All right, Doug,
Yeah,
we got to
sure.
let Sid go. We got to
I got to go.
Thank you so much.
I just
appreciate your time, and
I appreciate you guys a
Thank
ton.
you.
I'm really glad I got to know you, but I said it at the beginning, and I really mean this, like what you do for the industry and for people that are paying attention is really generous, and it's remarkable because you're helping lift up and like be a rising tide in the industry. So thank you for doing it.
all ships, and thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Peace,
Okay.
y'all.
Can't wait to see you.
See you soon. All right, bye.
See you later.
All right.